Hey, Tudor.
Hello. Yes, nice to hear from you.
All right, we got to aim the camera right at your face.
Is that okay?
No, I'm only seeing your left elbow.
So
No
how
problem.
about now? Is that
No,
better?
now I see your left hand.
So probably have to.
So the camera looks like it's behind the display.
Yeah,
Maybe it's here. You might have to do.
yeah, probably have to move to my because it's a screen. I am going to move to my computer.
No problem. No problem. We'll get all
So
set
is
up.
that better? Is that better now?
Now I can see the top of your head. Can you see yourself? There you
No.
go.
Oh yes. Oh, okay. Now it's fine.
Yeah. Good looking guy.
Don't tell me that. I might believe you.
That's a good looking hat.
So do you have an audience or just between the two of us?
We will. We have quite a few thousand people who are subscribing to the magazine, but they aren't there now. So they'll see
Mhm.
this. They'll see this in the magazine. It's called Competitive
Okay.
Swimmer Magazine.
Yeah.
So how are you?
Well, I finished some of the work I wanted to do for this year, and so I have new editions of some of my books. And the strength training book is called Periodization of Strength Training for Sports, has been published by Human Kinetics in last year, but I have also for Europe, which will be probably in the spring,
Okay.
a new book.
If we could move the
German.
camera. Oh, there you go. That's good. Just move you back just a little bit. Perfect. Now we can see you right in the screen. Uh, Tudor, there's going to be people that don't know you or of you. We are mostly for swimming coaches and elite swimmers, and sometimes really good age group swimmers, and sometimes parents. But it's mostly swimming, and I know you do
Yes.
multiple sports. Could you give us a little bit of your background and where you went to school, how you got involved with sports, and that kind of thing?
Well, I originally I'm from Romania, and I've been an athlete since I was a kid, like
Hmm.
everybody in every single other country. So I used to play soccer and then track and field, and then I ended up when I went to university, I ended up rowing. So, but also after I quit the sport, that was sometimes I was 26, I guess. Then I started to coach. So I had quite a few years of coaching. Personally, I had the silver medal in the Olympic in the European Championships in rowing,
Hmm.
but then I also coached in rowing and other sports, and including some of the top sprinters in Canada. Paul Walter, United States, all of these people, they were Olympic champions.
Wow. And where did you go to school?
A part of it in Europe, in Romania, but my PhD I did it in the United States, in
Where'd
New
you
York
get
State.
that? Oh, New
In New
York.
York State at Buffalo.
I see. Nice,
At
nice
that
warm.
time, Buffalo was, yeah, Buffalo at that time, that was in 1980 something, used to be the third largest university in the world.
Wow. I
It's a
didn't know it
big
was that
university.
big. Wow. How
So
many? Yeah, a lot
it
of
was
students.
very difficult for me because of my English, but I really I fought for it and I finished. Everything is done. But then I started to write because seeing what is published in some quarters, then I said, look, I can probably have a different position
Right.
than NHA. Human kinetics, I've been involved in for publishing some books, but also NSCA. I participate in many of their conferences.
I see.
So now what I'm doing is different activities such as our discussion now or meetings, seminars, conferences, and certainly updating my books.
Well, that's great. It's a great wide, a wide array of sports and a wide array of experience, and obviously success at every level. I know we'll get into this, but I think one of the things that we're going to talk about is my philosophy that training needs to be very specific. I got that from Dr. Yesus when I was an undergrad, and various other people, that I started to believe that if you want to be, you watch the Kenyans, and the LA Marathon came in one time and they're floating in, their last mile was like 4:35 or something, and they're floating in, they're just cruising in, and it's the end of 26 miles. But if you tried to get one of them to swim against a good nine-year-old swimmer, they would be lapped in 200 meters. And so you really start to get the idea of how specialized it is. And one day I was doing dry land the regular way I did it, the bench press and all the circuit and everything. And we had a girl do 42 pull-ups straight. And that's a pretty good girl. She dropped 42 seconds that year in the 400 IM. And we thought we were doing a great job. And John Mickinen walks in. He was swimming for Irvine Nova, and he was just doing some extra weight work away from his swim team. And I was coaching in high school, his high school team, and Janet Evans was in that high school team. You probably remember her. He comes in and everybody laughs and goes, "John, how many pull-ups can you do?" Because he's on the same high school team as Debbie, and reaches up and he does 1.5 pull-ups. 2 weeks later, I kid you not, 2 weeks later, he set the American record in the 800-meter free, and he was the anchor on our 4x50 relay team. So I started to suspect that general exercise is important, probably even imperative, but certainly not completely specific. And I know that there's no one better than you to present that to, even though I think you lean more on the side of general strength and less specificity in terms of the actual movements than I probably do, but I don't know that for sure. So I think that's a good way to start our discussion, and we can talk about what you do.
Well, what you have said about training being specific, there is no discussion there. Certainly, it has to be specific. Otherwise, if you're not adapting specifically to the needs of the sport, you are wasting your time. But when we talk about strength training, also has to be adapted to the needs of the sport. So then you have specific adaptation, and then you have benefit from that. So this is why I had also some examples here about strength training. But when I discuss about strength training, and different parts of the year has to be slightly different, not the exercises, but rather the type of strength.
I see.
Because ultimately, if you're a sprinter, you have to do the certain action as quickly as possible, because that's what makes a sprinter fast. Okay. So I'll give you an example. Although this is an old example in the sense that it happened many years ago with Ben Johnson. Everybody heard about Ben Johnson mostly because of the drugs, but people don't have the understanding that Ben Johnson, before the LA Olympic Games, he was third in Canada. In 9 months of strength training with me, he became third in Olympics, meaning a bronze medal. So the improvement was incredible, but training was very specific. So he became so powerful that it's incredible. Then after that, he never lost a race. So to me, I had many examples in which I can prove the importance of strength training and the benefit of strength training.
Sure.
So we're going to discuss maybe later on at the end of the handouts I sent to you.
Do you want me to?
There's periodization of strength training for a 50 meters race. So we'll discuss that because it is very. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm just sharing the screen in case you need to see that. Is this
okay? Sorry.
Yeah. No,
okay,
is
so
this
we'll
good?
discuss this at the end. But this is just the beginning, because every time I'm starting to talk about a given sport, I'm talking from energy systems point of view. So if you're looking at in the top of the chart, you have phosphagen, which means alactic, glycolytic or lactic, and oxygen. So depending on these three energy systems, you qualify or you classify your sport. Where is your sport? So therefore, I put in this chart that 50 meters sprinting is phosphagen. Well, if you want to be specific, to go back to what you said earlier, then you have to do uh, activities below 20 seconds or around that, which means that the energy system utilized is phosphagen, is alactic. And if you are using, in our interview we had or in the article I sent to you some time ago, I mentioned that for a sprinter, if you do aerobic work such as maybe 2,000 meters for a workout, it is a waste of time because again, it's not specific. So phosphagen, from the energy system point of view, 50 meters is to work specific for 50 meters, you have to use phosphagen energy systems. And then also switching over to glycolytic, which is lactic. So this is the area in which you basically spend the time. Anything which is aerobic is mostly to regeneration, recovery, relaxing. For instance, the first workout, if I were to be a swimming coach, the first workout after an important competition will be just easy, let's say 2,000-3,000 meters, but easy and just relaxing. But I'll never use this kind of training during the week, unless I'll do that one after very heavy loaded day, and the next day, then I'll have to relax and recover. So going back to what we discussed, everything is specific. Everything has to be specific from the energy system point of view and then from strength training point of view. Therefore, now, if you're looking at the table, see, for the phosphagen, for 50 meters, what is essential from the strength training point of view is maximum strength and power. But power is the element. But to be powerful, you have to first of all train the maximum strength, which means heavy loads, not too many repetitions, because you cannot do with heavy loads too many repetitions. So that's maximum strength, but that is converted, as we'll discuss later on at the end of the, for the other chart, at the end of the handout you have, everything then has to be converted to power. Power means quick contraction, propulsion. This is the key. From fly to 50 freestyle, everything is power. Now, if I'm moving to the right, where is the glycolytic energy system? And it shows the number of seconds, the event, and also the strength type of strength training. But now, if you're looking at that, this part of the chart, below the 200 and 200 meters, okay, which is the distance, you have maximum strength, power, and power endurance. But it doesn't mean that you do all of them at the same time. They are organized based on periodization concept, which means prior to the beginning of the season, if you do strength training, basically you have to do some adaptation, then you move to maximum strength. You build maximum strength before you move to power. So without having heavy loads or a capacity to apply force against heavy loads, if you don't do that, you cannot expect to have a powerful or a power athlete. It's impossible. So now, moving to the right is the aerobic system. I show there the number of minutes, the events, and what type of strength training now. It's power endurance, muscle endurance. Muscle endurance means many repetitions, but very specific and according to the distance. You don't do that for sprinters, nor do you do the program for sprinters for the distance, for long distance events. So this is what I try to say is that everything what we discuss or we do has to be specific. And this is specific to the events. But let me repeat, it's specific to the energy systems, and energy system is related to the specifics of strength training.
Tudor,
So,
Tudor,
yeah.
I get this, and I understand what you're saying, and I'm interested because I've asked this question of about 4 different people that are really, really smart in our sport, who have world record holders and that kind of thing. And I've asked, you know, if you look at track and field, this is perfect for you because you do so many multiple sports and you've seen people in different sports. If you look at track and field and you look at Usain Bolt, he runs the 100-yard dash so fast that he can look at people while he's finishing, and the 200 even better. But he can't run the 4. I mean, he's okay at the 4. He goes 45 seconds for 400-meter dash, which is really good for me and you, but it's not really good for considering what he goes in the 100 and 200. And if you tried to get him to run in a race that was more than 2 minutes long, it wouldn't even be in. But here's the funny thing is, Katie Ledecky, Michael Phelps, and you can name a few others that are in the 4x100 relay on the world stage and even hitting some of the best times in the world at the 100, and yet they swim the mile. They swim 20 minutes, or, you know, it's not 20 minutes for them, it's 14 minutes. 14 minutes for them, full blast, faster than anybody else too. Do you think that swimming is a very immature sport as compared to running in terms of, and one of the main reasons might be that we aren't specific enough? As for example, you probably know of the great breaststroker, Adam Peaty in Great Britain. He only swims one race really well, the 100 breast. He's not even in the Olympics in the 200 breast, not even in breast. Forget other strokes. He can't even do the other strokes at the Olympic level. Do you think that's the future of swimming? And is this the reason?
The specialty, it is the future, but it doesn't mean that it depends also what you train. For instance, you refer to Bolt, okay? He didn't train longer distance than 200 meters, so he cannot run 4.
But you're saying we shouldn't. He
Much,
should have. You know,
one not because look at 400 meters in track and field is a minute or 40 seconds, 45 seconds, something like that.
Right.
He's not trained for that because he's trained to run 20 seconds. So from 20 to 40 seconds, it's a big difference because you died at the 300, 350 meters. You are dying out because you're not trained for that. You cannot tolerate.
Sure, but should he train that far, or is he better off training in the area where he's really gifted in? What do you think?
Well, I'm not sure what kind of concept they follow and how they train, but if you're looking at, for instance, let's refer to this guy from Romania, Popovic. So he's good at 50, very good 100, 200, but at 50 meters, he's not very good. For instance, he went to Australia, right, for the World Championships short course, right?
Right.
He didn't do very well. Why? Because he has to turn several times in 100 meters, and he wasn't strong enough to turn properly. So to me, if I were to suggest him what to do, I'll say, you have to work on your legs to be stronger.
Right.
To push off against the, yeah. So he didn't do that well. Maybe it was also peaking or who knows what else. But the way I read his results, this is my conclusion. We do want to be better in a short course is different than long course.
Sure. Whole different world, huh? Yeah.
So therefore, he didn't do very well.
Yeah, and you see our college coaches really trying to work on the lower body and the jumping ability and the power of their short course swimmers, because they live and die on the basis of their short course swimmers doing well and doing really good underwater, doing really well underwater too, right?
In swimming, proportion is essential. If I were to design a strength training program for a swimmer, I would not pay attention to the lower part. Not much. Everything is lats. You were having fun with what I sent you, right? About that.
This.
Remember that I sent you something about the lats?
Oh yeah. This let me see. Here's the lats somewhere. Yeah.
No,
a little bit more, right? Yeah, here we go.
Yes, right here. Okay. Everything is lats. So
yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, if I were to,
in this part of the
if I were to design a strength training, sorry.
No, go ahead.
If I were to design a strength training for a sprinter, I'll spend lots of time for lats, maybe for calf rotators a bit, not much, and that's it.
Hmm.
You don't need more. But I look, athletes are exposed to so much energy consumption. They are trained so much, it's so much energy, so much stress. You cannot do stress in the pool, stress in the gym. You have to be very cautious about selecting what you're going to do. So I will use lats, maybe some bit of time for calf rotators, and that's it. I don't mind about legs. In the case of fly, that'll be different. I will use for legs because it's so essential
You would
as
use
compared
what?
to freestyle.
I'm sorry, you would use what?
Fly for 50 or 100 meters fly.
Yes. You
Yeah.
go after legs.
Yeah. So in that case, because if you're looking at the leg action, you have to work on strength training for legs, but not for freestyle.
Yeah, it's funny when you see the difference. It's like every swimmer, well-trained swimmer, world-class swimmer, has pretty developed lats, but not every world-class swimmer has really developed shoulder rotators. And so you see a lot of people reaching down. This picture is unfair because halfway through the stroke, you're right. It's lats. I mean, it's lats and maybe some chest here, right? You got some pecs going on here. But at the beginning of the stroke, it's very, very different. And in fact, if the sooner you go to your lats, the worse you are at the front part of the stroke. So I think most people don't work enough on the rotators. That's my opinion. What do you think about that?
Yeah, for rotators, but I wouldn't spend the same time as compared to the lats. I wouldn't spend the same time. So
Okay.
because
You'd spend more time on
they're small muscles, and you certainly can improve their maximum strength, no question about it. But still, the engine of freestyle or other events is the lats.
So let's go through frame by frame here and watch a couple of strokes. And here's what's I think going to be kind of fun is if you take this as we go frame by frame here with Katie. Now Katie's right here, and I think this is Titmus over here in the yellow. They're always wearing yellow in Australia. From here, notice how she hasn't really engaged her lats yet. Notice that? From here to here, she really hasn't engaged her lats at all. So she's halfway through her.
Not yet.
Now she's to her lats. Now she's to her chest.
Yes.
And now she's to her a little more to her core. And now she's going to do the same thing over here. But see that it's all from here to here is not unique in all the world, but the girl next to her, right over here, the one that's going to get clobbered by her, has engaged her lats a lot sooner. You see it right there? You can see them firing here.
That's
I don't know if you can see that very well.
Right.
And with Katie, there's two things that are happening that's better. One is she's got less drag. This girl's arm is too low. When it gets too low, like in your picture here, when the arm is that low, it's causing drag from the frontal drag. It is stronger. And we often tell swimmers, Gary Hall and I often tell swimmers, you're going to feel weaker when your arm is this high on the top of the water, but you're actually going to be stronger in terms of the velocity that your body's going to go. You just have to have some great shoulder rotators, and you have to have the contralateral development in all of the other stabilizing muscles, right? So what do you think about this in the weight room? How do you do the front end? I mean, I know how to do lats, I think most of us do, but how do you do this in the weight room?
For the lats, it's easy, but for the knee extensor, it's also easy because you have machines to do a leg extension, knee extensions, because that's what you need for freestyle and also for fly. How do you call it? Fly, like butterfly.
Butterfly, that's right.
Okay,
so the front part of butterfly looks like this too, right?
Yeah, for butterfly, the knee extensions, they are very essential. Talking about proportion, I would look for the proportion of the arms for the lats, but also for knee extensors, for quads. So in this case, in this event, I'll use leg extension to strengthen the quads. But in freestyle, not as much.
I'm asking, what about this rotator development? What about developing the arms? I get the legs. The legs are very, and Katie Ledecky, she almost doesn't use her legs at all. But from here to here on your arm, that rotator is not something that's natural in any weight room in the world, right? You don't see people doing this in the weight room,
exactly.
right? So how would you do it?
Well, simply mimic as much as possible that early action of the swimming.
Yeah. How do you do
early
that?
action.
What would you use? Tubing?
Well, it depends what you have in the gym. So but the early part is arms. I spent this for the rotation, and
Right.
you also mentioned very correctly so that in the early part of the freestyle is arm shoulder rotation, but after that, the lats they're taking over. The lats become the engine of the event.
Right.
But the early part, certainly, I would spend the time for the shoulder rotation, but still, to me, the engine is the lats.
Yeah, I don't know. I think you're right. I just think the thing that's I'm concerned with is that most people have the lats and the triceps to finish the stroke, because those are the kinds of exercises that are pretty easy to do in the weight room. The question is, what do we do about, geez, it's taking a long time for that to come up. What do we do about that front end? And I'm just asking that because that's I think one of the weaknesses of swimming. And I think you're right about the leg. You're talking about the leg extensors. Most people also have the problem of bending their legs on the recovery phase of the kick. So for instance, in this case, we'll look at Phelps and butterfly.
Yeah.
In this case, see the legs coming up here? You can see this guy here. This is a good example because it's not Phelps, but Phelps did it a little too. Watch his legs come up. Now they're coming up. If they come up bent, he's going to be stronger. He's going to use his quadriceps femoris, right? He's going to be stronger. Yes. The problem is he's going to be slower because he bends this leg. He has drag here now, right? If he were to extend his hip instead of bending his knees to bring his leg back up to get the force phase of the kick from here to here, then he would be a lot faster. But watch, he's going to bend it again. See that?
Yeah.
Anytime he gets in this position without seeing any, I always look for whether or not he's got pressure on his ankles right now. And this guy doesn't. He's still moving his legs up. And so that's a mistake, and it's slower. And you see this guy.
It's too much. It's not necessarily that much, definitely.
Yeah. But see, most people aren't strong enough to do the action. If they try to lift with their legs straight, they don't have hip extensors that are strong enough. Their glutes aren't strong enough. Their quadratus lumborum isn't strong enough, right? Those muscles that extend the hip, strong enough. So what would you do for this guy?
Well, the Nordic flexion.
Sure.
Okay, that's for the hams. But in some gyms they have different other machines also. But the hamstrings, they certainly have to be trained in this case, no question about it.
Yeah.
But in the case of, you said that rotated, the inertia, when you drive the arm towards the water to start moving the rotators, there is also an inertia, which is maintained in the early part, but then it's slowing down. So, for instance, in the case of exercise physiology, what I'm trying to say.
Yep. Go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is really.
So I'm trying to fly here to demonstrate what you're saying. Okay.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. So you're talking about the rotators again, right?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
So there is an inertia here from drive the arm towards the water. And only after the early part of touching the water, they start, the rotators start moving. But that's immediately right. the lats are taking over.
No, I don't know.
I'm not saying that disregard.
You're right with this guy, but he's slower. Watch Phelps. Watch Phelps. It's rotators first. See that? He's not using his lats. Now he's using his lats. But from here to here is where he beats people. Now he has 6'7" arms, and he is only 6'4". So that's part of it.
Mm.
But the thing is, the longer the lever is here, the stronger he actually has to be. Is that right? On the shoulder rotator, because he's got a longer lever to do this instead of going to his bigger, stronger muscles, the lats and the pec. He's got it. Watch this now. Watch him, not this guy anymore, because this guy's done. If you look at him, he's got his hand pointed out, his elbows down, and his lats are firing. That's why he's getting beat by Phelps. Now watch Phelps carefully. If you watch him, see that he's catching here,
Yes,
he's rotating his arm. He's rotating his shoulder without moving his lats. His lats aren't engaged yet at all, and then they engage. And I think that gives him more endurance in the race too. Do you agree? Do you think if you're using different muscles instead of just lats the whole time, you're going to be better off by the end of the race?
well, it's difficult to reply to this.
Okay.
Yeah.
See that? Yeah, from here to here,
Yes.
he's not lats, he's rotators. Then he's lats.
Yes, but so just I think the role of the rotators in the early part of the drive is probably is maybe shorter than maybe some people might believe. The length of the action of the arms in which the rotators are the engine, to me it is shorter than it might maybe some people might think.
Okay, maybe. I think again, it seems to be the one defining factor in
So
Ledecky.
don't hear me?
Yeah, can
Do
you
you
hear me?
hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems to be the one defining factor in Ledecky, though. She is tall, and so you're right. From the time she fires her lats and goes all the way through, that's kind of a long distance relative to the early catch. But sometimes if you don't have the early catch, it's hard to set up for the rest of it. Notice how close her hand is to her body. People are normally, when they go to lats, they normally reach down too far, especially those who try to go with a high hand recovery. So her advantage seems
I
to
understand
be
that you are very concerned with the technique, no question about it. You have to, because technique means efficiency. But at the same time, you have to also consider the physiological element, how well they are trained for different kind of actions. So talking about strength training, how well they are trained to have the propulsion phase as quickly as possible. Because to me, propulsion phase is really the most important element of freestyle or other styles.
right. So
I
you're more interested in the training part, right? The part that fades in a lot of people. You know, if they have 12 strokes and then they're dust because they're not trained well enough.
Well, yeah, I don't know to neglect the technical aspect, because, as I said earlier, to me, good technique means efficiency. Okay, but in addition to that, I'll spend also quite a bit of time for the development of strength. Now, I wanted to refer to something which is in physiology is quite well known, what is called irradiation. For instance, if you are just think about the early part of the shoulder rotators. If you spend too much time, or if you start a motion in that regard, all the shoulders around, all the muscles of the shoulders, they are under contraction.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we talk too much about little things, about very specific elements of a motion. In reality, even if you there is this principle called irradiation. You don't need to talk about for the shoulders too many exercises. I'll use maybe something for the rotator. The rest of it, let's do the job.
Okay.
I'm not sure what is happening in your case or in other clubs or other coaches, how much they spend for the shoulder rotators. I'll probably select maybe the best exercise and forget about others. It's too much time for something which is not as important as the lats.
I see. So you would spend a lot more time on the bigger muscles, is what you're saying?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So
and then,
think about mechanics in a car. There is an engine, okay? And in mechanics, you are looking which uh, let me try again. I think I confused myself a bit. I guess I lost my thought here. Um,
I'm trying to
uh,
figure out
so
some exercises that we do, but
yeah,
go ahead.
we were discussing about shoulder rotators and lats. If I were to spend time, I'll be two times longer time for lats than for shoulder rotators.
Okay.
So referring to back to what I said, irradiation means that one exercise, if you do like shoulder, uh, an exercise for shoulder, all the other muscles in that area that are under contraction. So be very selective with choosing the exercise for strength training because you don't have to have so many exercises.
Okay.
I've seen all kinds of coaches spending lots of time for different gimmicks and stuff or little exercises or muscle, and it's a waste of time.
Okay. That was certainly my experience with Dr. Yesus, where he would work a lot of very small motions for contralateral, especially contralateral stabilizing exercises, and for core exercises.
Yeah.
This is kind of what we were talking about. I like your idea here with the two cars. What's going to be better, and part of it is how you're shaped. And then part of it is the engine. I think you're making the point here of the engine, right?
Yeah, exactly. So what I was trying to say is that in mechanics, people recognize that not the shape of the car is the element, the essential element, but the engine.
Okay.
In sports, what is the equivalent with this? Is the maximum strength. So this is why I choose these two cars to show. The car which has the stronger engine is the fastest. The athlete who has strongest muscles is the fastest. This is what I'm trying to take out from this analogy. So people should be left with the impression or the thought that engine is essential. That's why I mentioned when I referred to lats a couple of times, I referred to that or use the term engine, which is an engine of different parts or of the swing stroke, and focus on those ones. Select it, the best exercise, and that's what you have to do. Because and from visiting so many people and working with so many athletes, I realized that many coaches are using far too many exercises for their sports, and it's a waste of time.
Yeah, I
This is
mean,
why I mentioned it.
here's an interesting example. This guy, how fast do you think he is? And yet he's the fastest swimmer that ever swum the 100 free, ever in history. And look at his body. I mean, he's got good I'm sure you can notice this too. He's got pretty good balance here. You can see that his shoulders are balanced. He's got good musculature there. Where's his lats? I mean, you know what Dressel looks like, right? They look completely different. But this guy is, I don't know. I mean, he's got a great engine. You're right. But everyone wants to make him bigger. I mean, all the college coaches are drooling over him because if they just put on
necessarily
20
because adaptation is different for different people.
Okay.
Well, build physiology differently, genetics is different. So you shouldn't look just at the size. This is bodybuilding. I'm certainly against anybody using bodybuilding as a method to develop strength. But in this case, just because it doesn't look that the lats they're big, but they might be very efficient.
I see.
So it's not necessarily the size.
So give me an example of a weight routine that you would give to a swimmer who sort of presented like this. He's young, he's 16 years old, or in this case, I think he's almost 17 years old. He's obviously not done any weight training to speak of, maybe done some push-ups but what would you do with him now?
First of all, every time I start the program, I start from a planning element. Okay, so tell me when you want to pick, and I organize a program to be ready for that date.
That's your
In this
periodization.
case,
Mhm.
Yes, it's periodization. So therefore, when you are talking about strength training for swimming, or in this case, if you would you please go to the last page of this handout?
Sure. Sure. And I'll mention, by the way, if you want to use this as an example, we're about 500 days, maybe a little longer to Paris, right? So he would like to do well in Paris, right? He'll make the Olympic team. He'll make the Olympic team. So maybe we could look at it that way. He's 500 days out, maybe a year and a half out, is when we look at it. And you've got him, he looks like this. He's obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that he probably bench presses, 100 pounds or something, and yet, what would you do with him? That's a good idea. Now you want the last page of this.
Bench press is not as effective for a swimmer as some people might think.
I completely agree with you. Absolutely.
Okay.
And
so
with pull-ups, by the way, I don't think pull-ups are very good either. I don't like.
I wouldn't spend the time for a bench press. I would spend the time. I'm repeating myself. I don't know how many times. Lats, engine.
So how would you work the lats?
The triceps, the lower part of tricep is utilized in swim, but not as much as people believe. So, to me, I wouldn't use the bench press at all.
I see. I agree. Okay. So is this the page you want me on?
No, yeah. So what I want us to show here is that, because you asked me what would I do if I had the opportunity to work with the program. To me, although the number of pages of days can vary, obviously, depending on when you want to pick. But to me, I have the plan organized in different segments. Early part of, I call this AA, means anatomical adaptation, meaning getting ready the muscles for the maximum strength, because maximum strength is the element which increases the impulse, the proportion. So this is shorter depending on the background of the swimmer. But maximum strength has to be minimum 6 weeks, because otherwise it doesn't have much adaptation and improvement.
6 weeks.
So,
okay.
So then gains in maximum strength, they are going to be converted into power. I look at the Popovic, that guy from Romania. He had an exercise in which he was applying the medicine ball and pushing down. So it's very similar to the arm motion, but that's power. Right. But if you don't have the maximum strength before power, I think the level of power is not going to be as high as expected.
That's what we find in our specialized gym too.
Periodization is essential to me. This is essential to create an athlete according to what is dominant in that sport.
I see. So exercises might include, I don't know. I'll tell you what my weight room has. We have I went and got some of these things. I either designed them or I got them. We have a pull. You remember the Nautilus pullover? Where you pull it over.
You know what I use? Yeah. Front arms pull down. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do that with your elbows high, or you can do it the way that it's designed with your elbows on the thing. But I like the elbows high.
The elbow is not very important. It's really the action from here down. In other words, the lats.
You wouldn't drive with it, yeah, because it has more chest.
No, not much.
Yeah. So okay, we like that one, and then we take that over to
the lats,
an isokinetic swim.
Yeah, may I repeat myself? Front lats pull down is the best exercise.
Okay.
In my mind, that's what it is.
On a cable.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if you use the same terminology as far as front.
No, that's exactly what I would say. Yeah, front lat.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay, so that's the best exercise for the lats.
And you would do it on your knees or or standing? What do you like?
Well, the position which is most comfortable, on sitting or on standing.
Okay.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Yeah, as long as the muscles are. I mean, the one thing that can happen is, they start to use their abs or something. So you want to kind of lock them out if you can. Okay. That sounds good. So that would be the number one exercise you would use in all of swimming, right? Backstroke, breaststroke arms, obviously. and
Well,
freestyle.
mostly for freestyle and fly.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Now, this maximum power thing, once you get the maximum strength, you know, they pull over. Now, what would you do? Sets of what? 10? Sets of 5? Sets of what? So for the maximum strength, how many sets and how many?
Depends on the load.
Okay.
Depends on the load. Okay. One repetition maximum is 100%. So if you want to work on maximum strength, you use 80% and up. So always I refer to percentage, not number of repetition, because number of repetitions, it depends on the load. So my capability to do the action, it depends on the load. So therefore I don't discuss first. The first element I discuss is not repetitions. Tell me the load.
Okay.
Tell me the load. And for maximum strength, 80% and up.
If it takes,
so
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have several repetition. Several examples in my strength training book, and certainly that depends on the sport. But 80%, 90, 95%, I wouldn't go beyond 95%.
So what if this is just being a little creative here, but let's say it takes a swimmer 10 strokes per lap, and they're going to swim 8 laps. So they're going to have 80 strokes. Now they're going to have a little rest in between while they dolphin kick, but we'll just say short course just to make it interesting. They're going to have 80 strokes.
80 strokes.
You're saying maximum strength is going to make them better at 80 strokes. But when you because it would just be stronger. And so as a percentage of their best, they're actually going to have it easier when they try to take 80 strokes. Is that right?
So you're talking 8 or 80?
80.
80 strokes.
Well, I'm sorry. Let's say it's 8. So there's 8 laps on a 200 meters, 200 short course. Let's say there's 10 strokes per lap, maybe kind of high, but let's just say there is. 10 times 8 is 80 strokes in the race.
Yeah, you can do 10 sets or 8 sets of 8 or 10 repetitions.
Okay. And that's in the power phase or the maximum strength phase?
Well, it's a maximum strength, but in the power phase, I lower the load a bit to 70, 60, 70, maximum 80. But the action is quicker. So now you have to find an exercise which allows you to use the lats as quickly as possible. So this is why I referred to this Popovich guy, because I saw him doing an exercise before in Australia, and I like that exercise. Medicine balls, bang it from standing, bang it against the ground. That's power.
Okay, so that's power.
Yeah. Bang down. From here, bang down. So
Does
this
he
is the
do
power
it?
phase.
He's doing that standing up?
From standing, yes. But you have to stand on something because you need more time to. Well, it could be from standing, or it could be to stand on something like a chair, not necessarily chair, on bench or something. It depends. You can do it from standing or a mountain or climbing on the box or something. Look at the action, how well they are performed. That's the essential element.
Yeah, I mean, I think that bothers me a little bit about that from a biomechanics standpoint is at the beginning of the motion, it's really hard not to be really gravity. He's not really going against anything. And so in the water, he's got pressure right from the beginning. In fact, more pressure if you think about it, because he's got a lot less muscle to overcome that pressure. Whereas with the med ball, I like your idea of accelerating. That's why I like the Vasa, because in a way it makes you it makes you figure out you've got your arms locked in and you push through. But the front end of the Vasa, we had to modify it. I can show you that sometime. Yeah, we had to modify it because they weren't getting anything from the front end.
That's right. It's very true what you're saying. So the best position in this case will be in an inclined position.
I see.
Legs up and head lower. Now the arms are behind the head, and now you use the muscle now more.
Very good. I like that a lot. Very good.
So you throw the ball rather than banging against the ground. You're throwing from here over towards the coach or somebody or against the
Yeah.
wall.
Yeah, really
So
good. I
that's
like that a
better.
lot. Yep.
Yeah, your point is very well taken. That's true. You're right. Very
And your
good.
solution is very well done. So very good. Now we're complimenting each other. That's about time, huh? All right. So good. No, but no, but I like that. It's almost like I think instead of incline, you meant decline in a sense, right? Like decline bench press where your head's lower than your right. So your decline,
That's right.
right? Your feet are right. I like that a lot. I like it's uncomfortable in a way. It's sort of awkward. You could probably do it. We use isokinetics. So I just want you know that I like isokinetics. And the reason I like it is it's accommodating to whatever you're doing. So at the beginning, you don't
Yes.
have as much pressure because it's up to you to generate the pressure.
Yeah.
And at the end, you
It
can
is.
generate more pressure, like swimming.
Yeah, that's okay for the anatomical adaptation phase, but later on, when you move to max strength to power, it's not as effective.
That's right. I completely agree. And so what you're saying is that if I'm going to continue to use accommodating resistance like Doc Councilman and Mark Schubert and many other people, Berkeley in its heyday, I think, you'd say that might be okay, but you better make sure to do that max strength part, and you better not lose strength while you're doing isokinetics, right?
If you don't increase your maximum strength, you're not going to have power.
Right.
Because
Or
if you're
very
looking,
much more, yeah. Okay, I agree with you. But the question, I think we've in a way sort of solved it is, so how do you be progressive with those med balls? I guess you'd have to factor for all the science, right? You'd have to say, how fast is that med ball moving? Or we could just say, how far did it go, right? How far did that med ball go when you threw it from a decline? How far did it go? And then add more heavier weight balls as they get to a certain level of proficiency. Does that make sense?
well, you are playing also with the weight of the med ball.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you decrease the weight, you increase the action, the velocity, the quickness of action. And the quickness of action is very essential. So in the early part of that phase, when you do power, you may use heavy loads or heavier balls. But as you approach the competition now with quickness, decrease load and increase the quickness of action.
And maybe the distance the med ball gets flown off this thing that we're laying on, right? It just goes farther because it would theoretically, if you had more power, just like a vertical jump, if you had more power, you would jump higher. And the same thing with the upper body. If you had more power, it would throw farther. That makes sense, huh?
Yes,
okay.
Definitely.
Now, how do you maintain the strength while you're in the power phase?
How you maintain the maximum strength?
Yeah.
Well, if you have, let's say, a day in which you do power, 2 sets of heavy loads is good enough to maintain it.
Okay.
Maintenance is easier than building. Okay?
Yeah.
So you come from a phase where you build maximum strength. Now to maintain it, I need less time.
Okay.
So now from now on, what I stress is power, the quickness of contraction.
Now, I know you're really an expert in periodization. I know there's a lot of coaches that would be watching this and they'll be wondering about taper. They want to hit that perfect performance on that perfect day. And you're probably the one of anybody I know that knows more about how to periodize so that there's a perfect time. How much, just for one example of that, is how close to the major competition, the Olympic Games, the Olympic trials. In America, the Olympic trials are harder than the Olympic Games. So the Olympic trials are the Olympic Games. How close to that are you going to do maximum strength? And does it matter how close to that you do maximum power? And I have some examples. Sippy Woodhead, right before she went to nationals, when she was a young kid, would do the swim bench all out before she actually got on the plane. And there's other people like that try to maintain their at least their power very, very close to the competition, if not almost the day. What do you think about all that?
Well, let's go first of all to the concept of tapering. Unless you change the concept or the duration of tapering, I remember that in swimming, tapering is very long. To me, if I talk about sprinters, my tapering will be short.
Okay.
No more than 2 weeks. There's no, you lose too much. I wouldn't use for tapering more than 2 weeks. But having maximum strength before and maximum strength converted into power and maintain some power. For picking, 2 weeks is maximum. I waste my time. I wouldn't spend more time than 2 weeks.
Okay.
But
But you
yet,
wouldn't,
yeah.
you wouldn't be trying to increase the power. But 3 weeks out, you might still be trying to increase the power or the maximum strength.
Well, in the 2 weeks, you cannot talk about increasing the speed. You are talking the power you increase the quickness of action.
Okay.
Okay, so meaning lower weight for the medicine balls.
Okay. And in the pool, lower velocities. Would you think lower velocity? Because I mean, the one thing that's weird about swimming is there's more resistance as you increase the velocity of your arms. If you have a good stroke, there's more resistance. So if you want your peak performance, I think there are some people that warm up, they just basically get wet. And there's other people that warm up and they warm up a lot. And that includes what they're doing to the week or two before the competition. What do you think about all that?
But warm up is warm up and is based on particularities of the athlete. Okay, I would warm up. I shouldn't be confused with anything else related to training.
Okay.
What you are doing after warm up that's what is essential. Okay, and now during the peaking, I would spend longer time for recovery, but I wouldn't decrease the quickness of contraction, the quickness of the action. Give the athlete a longer time to make sure that they are not increasing the fatigue element. Okay,
right.
But we have to also consider the fatigue. We are not approaching the competitions in a state of fatigue. Therefore, longer rest interval than normal to avoid accumulation of fatigue.
Okay.
Because when you are fatigued, then there's no way that you can be very quick in action.
So let me show you what I've been doing. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So it is what is called nervous system training. Quick.
Let's go back a minute and go back to I'm going to show you this. So this is what I've been doing with data from USA Swimming, and this happens to be a team that is probably the best age group team maybe ever, but certainly in America right now. It's the Las Vegas Sandpipers. This is Bella Sims, Katie Grimes, Erica Sullivan, and Claire Weinstein, and Ilya Karun. What I did was I went through their best times in each event. So I'll make this a little bit bigger so you can see it a little better. Can you see it okay?
Yeah, okay.
So,
yeah.
So you see Bella Sims' best time in the 50 free is 22.7. Her best time in the 100 is 47.1. It's all yards. I've got meters here too, but a lot of coaches watching this might be meters, but we'll just do this. And what we've done in here is we doubled her 50 time to see how much endurance she had to be able to finish her races. And her drop off between the 50, her best 50 and her best 100 is unbelievably low at 1.68 seconds. Then when you get to the 200, her drop off's about 6 seconds. These are relatively normal for very elite swimmers. Then in the 500 free, we've noticed that she can hold 87% of her best 100. She's not the best on her team for doing that, but that's pretty substantially better than most teams, especially now when so many people are trying to train US RPT. They're trying to go race pace all the time, 100% of the time. And I believe in race pace training. I just don't believe, I believe the way that they're doing it is possibly better because they try to go long. They go 72,000 meters or more, or typically about a week, 72,000 meters a week, much of which is EN2, so EN3, where they're just basically doing very good strokes for long endurance training. But what's funny about it is just like Caleb Dressel, who owns the American record in the 200 IM and trained sets like, 10 400s, and he's the best sprinter that we've ever had, the best sprinter on the planet, right? The best 100 flyer, the best with the lats, and yet he's up here doing these kind of things in 500 frees. So what we're seeing is that the people that train this way are better all the way across the level. And this doesn't make sense from what we talked about with track. Usain Bolt, I don't even know if you'd even know his name. This is what I'm thinking you're saying to me, that we wouldn't even know his name, because 22.7 is a pretty fast 50, but it's nothing like what the fastest people do. So she's very good, and she has to be very good because she's only going to go up to about 90%. Here she was at 89% at one time of her best 100 time for 500. But the problem with this whole thing is it doesn't make, from your point of view, it doesn't seem to make what Dr. Gennadius of Sokolovas said is that there's a point where you have to stop doing weight work because they're too strong. And you have to start doing aerobic work and get them strong and get them more endurance. Then you come back to the weight work, and he's got an algorithm for that. What do you think about all this?
Too strong is a little bit difficult term for me, because I use sometimes with some sprinters such a heavy load that from other sports they'll say that we're crazy. In sprinting, we use 300 kilograms for leg press, for calf press.
Sure.
300 kilograms. Okay, Ben Johnson, that time he was 70 kilos. So it's almost 3 times heavier than his own body weight. So you're never too strong. What you're doing with that strength. This is a key element.
Sure.
And in the phase when you are approaching competition to do endurance work, to me, for a sprinter, it's a killer.
Yeah, you think? And yet what's funny is these
wouldn't
people,
even consider it.
two of these girls were on the just a couple months ago at the World Championships. Two of these girls were on the 4x200 relay. Two girls from one little age group team in Southern Nevada, were on the same relay team. The fastest of the 200s freestylers in all of the world. Now, I mean, let's face it, Tudor, if we're right about this, about running being that far ahead of swimming, maybe we're all making this mistake, even though they're the world record, even though they're the fastest swimmers in the world. I'm okay with that. In fact, I'm thrilled when I hear you say something like that, because it gives me hope about the future of our sport. But is that what you're saying?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So if this girl's a sprinter, her racing these longer events and training for these longer events, you're saying it's holding her back.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
Physiologically, you are talking about different training. So why do you use the long distance for what purpose? Because endurance for a sprinter is in the around 90% of what you showed him, the percentage. If you decrease the percentage and you do distance, what is the benefit of that training?
Well, the only thing, and I understand what you're saying, and I want to agree with it. The one thing I would say, though, when you look at your chart here, this chart was based upon a lot of other sports as well as swimming. And when you look at this, there is no such thing as a truly anaerobic race in swimming. 50 meters doesn't take 12 seconds. And I'm one of those guys. After 12 seconds, I'm dust. So after 12 seconds, I can run 12 seconds just fine. But if I swim 12 seconds, I literally can feel myself slowing down on the last 12 seconds of this race.
Okay, now I understand what I'm trying to do here.
Okay.
The phosphagen system lasts 12 seconds. It's not what I'm training. If I do, for instance, you move to the glycolytic system training.
Right.
Okay. So you have, let's say, 25 seconds. Now, it doesn't mean that the 25 seconds in that training you are not doing the maximum velocity. Are you on the same page in this discussion or not really?
Yeah, I think so.
You're saying nobody does 12 seconds. True.
Not
because most of the program in a pool is based on the length of the pool, right?
Right.
But sometimes I can do, for instance, if I want to do just the early part of the race of a sprinter, I'll start from the start and just the first 15, 20 minutes. I wouldn't go to the end of it.
No, but I agree. I understand.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and we also say, maybe you can say if I'm right here too, is what I was told by a number of scientists that, and my mentors, is that you need a significant amount of rest in order to build this power. So you need 4 to 6 times rest as the effort itself.
Oh,
So-
definitely,
Okay,
definitely.
great. Yeah, you see guys
Because
away
this
from
is,
it, sitting around.
yeah.
Yeah.
In physiology, this is called nervous system training. Nervous system meaning the quickness of contraction with maximum concentration.
Okay.
So
Here's where we might disagree. And I have Dave Salo on tomorrow on this in this magazine, and he's going to be very close to what you're saying here. But I want to kind of needle you with a little bit of this, just a bit. And it's more to ask a question, but it's also from experience. What we've noticed is that if somebody like Dressel, who's trained for a longer way, he's, this guy's up to 50,000 meters or 40,000 to 50,000 meters a week. And somebody's saying, well, he should just stick to phosphagen. The funny thing is, or even glycogen is because of our theory is that because of the oxidative work, that he's been able to build more capillarization in the working muscles. And actually, because he's going a slower speed, if he's carefully monitored in terms of the motion, that he's maybe building more capillarization. Now, I would agree he might be losing a little bit of fast twitch when he's doing it, but he comes down to when he does rest, he does a really good job. And when he's not resting, the other theory, this is what Greg Troy and Mark Schubert and a lot of other people, Sweetnam, a lot of other people would tell us, is because I've trained him up in this oxidative area a lot, when they go series of glycogen training, where most people would be falling apart by the third rep, 3 100s all out. And now by the third rep, by the third one, you can already see them slowing down, that these guys that are trained up here don't slow down as much and can actually train harder and more consistently. And, again, maybe 72 hours in between, but still more consistently than the guys that are always around here and touching on here. You think that's baloney, huh? Scientifically not true?
I think sometimes we are talking about different animals here, glycolytic versus oxidative. Glycolytic, you are adapting to maximum 90 seconds. You cannot be very effective when you are moving to the long distance. But I'm talking to the converted because I think I sense that you are feeling about the same thing about this.
Yeah, I just wonder if oxidative work helps train glycogen.
Yeah, I have,
Later.
but not
later.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I mentioned several times that to me, in swimming, the oxidative part of training is far too much. It's too overly emphasized.
Okay.
The shorter the event, the less I would spend on oxidative. No question about it.
Okay. Well, another thing that Dr. G said, and I don't know if you know him, but he said that he believes the 100 free is 3 seconds too slow. The world record, he thinks, will be broken by 3 seconds someday. And he was basically talking about the mechanics of it, he said, not even the training of it. But I kind of agree. I kind of see where you're going. And a lot of people go this way with coaches that just go the long distance and don't pay attention to the stroke. I can actually hold my hands out here, and I probably have 10 coaches I know that film every day in the whole world. I mean, there's probably more. I just don't own, and I get to interview a lot of people, but they're not even paying attention to the actual motion of the stroke because they can't see it at the angle that they're seeing it at. So you're right. If they're up in oxidative and they're not even doing the motion that they would need here, much less the amount of velocity of the motion, then you're right. This is just a waste of time. But I do think that there's some happy medium.
Remember how we started our discussion about specificity?
Sure.
If your athlete is 200 meters, what business do you have to go to oxidative the way it's actually happening in swimming? It's a waste of time.
So you don't think there's any greater chance for somebody really well oxidatively trained, like the Las Vegas Sandpipers I just showed you, dumping back through the Krebs cycle, the lactate or the other waste products back through there and getting more energy because they're that well trained. You think they're going to be much better trained if they stay in here to be able to do what I just said?
Yeah.
Okay.
The more you train around that for distances for 100, 200 meters, the better you're adapting and more efficient. Everything else spent on the other part, for me, will be just a recovery. I would not use, for instance, this guy, Popovich, okay? He's, you know, obviously about him. He spent so much time for endurance. I said, what the heck are you doing, guys? It's different animals. Okay, you're physiologically or genetically, you are talented for shorter distance. What reason do you have to go to, I don't know, 4,000 meters aerobic work? For what? If you want to do something for specific endurance for 1 and 2, then do it not longer than 250. Because now you're doing 250 meters is the endurance component. It's longer, 50 meters longer than the duration of the event, but you are working the endurance component. If you believe that you are going to do 2,000, 3,000 meters in a workout for a sprinter for a 100 and 200 meters, I repeat myself, it's a waste of time.
All right, no, you should repeat yourself, because we want to make sure this is what we're. This is where I have to make sure that I totally respect what you're saying. I just, as you look out at the world of swimming, you see relatively few people successful at what you're saying. It just is. Okay. I mean, I'm not saying that there aren't that, you know, Peter Andrew tries to do it with his son, Michael Andrew. He tries to do it, but we wonder why he's so fast and yet he just can't hold the same 100. He's about 1.5% slower when you double his 100, like I showed you before. When you double his 100 and look his 50 and look at his 100, and when you double his 100 and look at his 200, he's slower than Dressel, who trains traditionally. Some people say it's old school. You don't think that's the reason. You just think it's a throw of the dice. In other words, Dressel's more talented. Yeah. You're thinking Dressel would be even faster if he were to train less aerobically than we know he does.
Exactly.
Okay.
Because it's so much energy being spent. Now remember that an athlete is exposed to stressor, physical training, social, psychological, stress,
Sure.
and the family, school. What the heck you're doing? This guy is an exhausted person.
Yeah.
Of your
So,
aerobic system.
Let's go back to
that
what
between
let's go back to what we were discussing in the early part. Specificity. If you go to 3,000 meters aerobic, it's not specificity. You are wasting your time. It's not specific. What kind of adaptation? What do you gain from that? Personally, I can't see what you're gaining.
I see. No, I had a feeling you would talk like this, and I'm glad you are. I think part of the thing is to think, okay, look where we used to be in swimming, and look where we are. I think we need to look at track and field. You couldn't be more right in track and field. You don't find marathoners running the 100-yard dash. You don't find exactly. You're right. So different animals. Yeah. By the way, in terms of being able to, this is kind of part of it too. Is in terms of being able to look at Popovich and go, well, you know, you go to world record in the 100 free, so you must be a sprinter. I don't agree. I actually think when I look at, now again, this is 50 years of looking at swimming strokes. I actually think Popovich is better. And back to your point you just made is maybe not psychologically, but I like this 400 free a lot
of people.
Well, actually, I can't just play this because I'm talking over it. But he is just beautiful in this 400 free. His strokes are rotated a little bit better because he has more time to rotate. He's relaxed. He catches the water really early. He's using his whole core. His ankles are nice and flexible. He can kick when he wants to, but he doesn't have to. I think he has trouble in the 50 because he's probably a 400 swimmer. But you don't know. We don't know. He's only 17 years old.
Yeah, well, probably genetically he's more talented for 2 and 4.
So if we think about that, and maybe he's good at the 8, we don't even know. But based on that, when you're talking about, I get it when you're talking about elite swimmers and already mature people. What would you say about training age group swimmers? You know, pre-puberty swimmers for endurance first, which they're better at first, right? They don't have a lot of muscle yet, and they don't have the testosterone or whatever. What about training them for distance and then bringing them down later on? In other words, but good distance, right? Good strokes the whole way. What do you think about that idea?
Well, uh, age groups should be tested sometimes as much as possible to figure out what is their genetic background or genetic talent.
Okay.
Are they sprinters? Are they long distance? And then there'll be a part of the training will be a mixture between long distance and sprinting, and then specialization, meaning you specific says that you're a sprinter, you do sprinting, nothing else. To me, the future, because you were referring to that earlier,
Yeah.
to me, the future is this. You see you see athletes or swimmers doing just 50, or doing just 100, or doing just 200. What used to be Phelps and others being so incredible athletes in most of the distances, this is going to be disappearing because I sense that strength training is going to be utilized more effectively in the future. I've seen in Hungary. I don't know if you remember that Hosso girl uh, in the last Olympics. She won 3 gold medals. You know why? He did a lot of strength training.
Who is this? Who are you talking about?
The Hosso from Hungary.
Oh yeah, Hosu. Everyone knows Hosu, the Iron Lady. Yeah,
So
yeah.
it was in Rio. In Rio, she had 3 gold medals, but she did lots of strength training, and you could see that she did lots of strength training. It was
Yeah,
visible on her physique.
yeah. Yeah.
Well, I mean, she improved that so much because of strength training.
How much strength
Now,
training did a
what they
distance
do,
swimmer?
yeah.
Go ahead.
So I think, to me, the essential element is really to be as specific as possible. And if you match the specifics, the genetics of the individual with your specific training, you have your champion. But never neglect. I arrived at this conclusion for a long time. I had an American pole vaulter. I never met the guy, just at the phone. I conducted his training just
I'm doing
emails or the phone.
I'm doing that
never
on
seen
Zoom
him.
now. It's a great world, right? Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. So what happens that he contacted me before the Athens Olympic, that was 2004, and said, I cannot improve the performance. And he sent me some information and some videos and stuff like that. I said, you have to improve your speed, because pole vaulting is bending the pole, and the pole is that catapulting you over the bar. That's all what it is. So if you want to be a good vaulter, you have to be very fast at it. And he was contradicting. I mean, he was saying, "What are you telling me that I'm not fast enough?" I said, "You are not fast enough. Work on speed, and speed to me means a good strength training background." He worked in Olympics, world record champion. Not because I did anything particular, simply because he improves the speed, because that was a critical element in his performance.
Well, there's a sport
So
you
for
really can't do
Popovich,
slow. That's a sport you really cannot do slow. You don't do a slow motion pole vault.
yeah, but he was contradicted when he was amazed. Said, how can you say that? Am I fast? I said, you're not fast enough because you don't bend the pole as much as you could. And with Popovich guy, that guy from Romania, if I had a word in regarding his training, I'll make him a stronger person. And then he'll be also as good as he is in 102, he'll be also very good in 50.
Now, would it be worth
the future to me?
If he also got more hypertrophy and he got so big it was harder to pull him through the water? Is there a way to make him strong without gaining a lot of weight?
Oh yes, because you see, in these pages I sent to you, if you are looking at page 3,
physiology of strength.
Just lift it up a bit, up.
This one here, or more?
Yeah, more.
One more.
Even more. Okay, here.
Oh, here. Okay.
So what I'm trying, yes, right here, that's fine. What I'm trying to show you, what happens with myosin. If you are looking at the muscle the intimate elements of the muscle, myosin and actin. So this guy on the left didn't have strength training. The guy on the right, he did have a strength training. So what you see, hypertrophy of the myosin is thicker, but also lots of
Cross bridges.
cross bridges, because these cross bridges they or overlap themselves and pull. They pull stronger. So the scope of strength training is to do what is showing on the figure 2, meaning maximum strength results in that kind of stuff, increasing myosin uh, hypertrophy, but also number of cross bridges. Without increasing the cross bridges, you cannot pull, you cannot apply force. It's impossible. Where is the force coming from? Now, it doesn't mean, going back to your question or discussion, it doesn't mean that doing this, you're going to be like Hercules. No way, because it's very intimate adaptation. And you won't see the muscle of the swimmers more than they are right now, but it's more specialized. I'm not sure if I did that very clearly or.
Well, I'm just wondering how much. I mean, you look at Dressel as a freshman in college, and you look at him as a senior or post grad, and he's another guy. I mean, he was already a muscular kind of a guy, and that's kind of one we have to look at too, is how big should he be? Do we get more injured? We see with the NBA, they're so big that they're getting injured far more than they would when I was a kid. People didn't get injured as much. I mean, Kareem didn't get injured that much, and he was a skinny guy. So
I don't know what kind of strength. Yeah,
we're making.
I don't know what kind of strength training they're doing.
Yeah, well, we know that they're not doing. They used to do the leaper and other isokinetics, and they're doing really heavy lifting now. And I think it makes them stronger, and especially in basketball where people are going to hit you, or water polo, whatever. But in swimming, the leanness of I thought you were making the point of the sports car, which I really like sports cars when you had that drawing, but you were only talking about the engine. But the problem is that if we grow this guy to look like Dressel, I wonder if we're going to, he might be faster, but would he be the fastest? You know, right now he's the fastest that's ever been produced on the planet. And are we really going to build? I agree with the myelin, but not the myelin too, but the myosin, I agree with that. But gosh, how big does he? Isn't there a limit though? Is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, this is a really specific adaptation of strength training work. You see, strength training, people are saying how often? Well, for athletes such as swimmers, because they don't need, they're not like throwers or other type of athletes like that.
Right.
2 maximum 3 times per week is more than enough. During the maximum strength phase, it will be 3 times, and then the rest of it 2. So this, if you do that for 6 weeks, 9 weeks, you'll see that the adaptation and the increase in strength without any hesitation. That is going to happen. But you don't need to do it daily, because some people do daily. I wouldn't do that.
Okay.
So that's why I said earlier, depends what kind of strength training they do.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I know what I did with some of the sprinters and other guys, but only maximum 3 times, sometimes 2. And still they improve tremendously.
So what's it look like? I mean, are you doing with 2 times, let's say 2 to 3 times a week, you're doing maximum, are you obviously you're a scientist, so you're probably measuring how much force they're able to do. Do you pretty much expect that every week they're going to be better?
See, I test every 3rd week. I test athletes, okay, because I use the step loading, and so then you get the feeling of whether they improve or not. But I would not use even with swimmers, although for them strength training is not as important as jumpers or throwers. I would not use a longer phase than 9 weeks, maximum 3 times per week, and that's it. Not too many. Probably if your readers or the people who are visiting your magazine, they would look into some examples of maximum strength in my book. They can see how many sets, how many repetitions, and stuff like that as examples.
Well, I'm trying to be really specific to swimming here, and I know your book isn't specific just to swimming, and so I'm just trying to get a really good handle on that. And you know, it's funny because I've been personally training a swimmer who's become a very good swimmer. She's only 13, but she's become a really good swimmer. She swims faster in the mile than 3 of her 500s put together before we started training. And every day we expect something to improve, but in order to do that, I have to switch. Now, every day, I only have 3 days a week, but every day we expect like her kicking is going to improve. She's going to have less strokes. She's going to have a better turn. I mean, there's a lot to improve, but every day we expect something. But when we track her, we're finding that if we expect power improvement, we're actually getting, and this is to your point where I'm talking to the right guy here, her power improvement is at about 3%, which is still pretty high because the season's not over. She'll get to, in some areas, she's more than 5. She's dropped 6 seconds in a couple of hundreds, and that's pretty good in hundreds, but she's an age grouper, so that happens. But her mile, oh my gosh, it's just off the charts. I mean, she's the most improved miler in the whole Southern California. And I mean, with any age group of anybody, because we have worked speed, and because unlike most teams, when we kick, we time it, but most people don't. So I guess what I'm asking is, if we're doing strength training, if we measure it, or we're probably going to be more likely to improve it. First of all, it's more fun, right? And then you put it up on a chart and they improve it. I'm just wondering how, I know I've gone through stages with 6-9 weeks where almost every week I got better. Is that pretty possible?
So how old is she? 13?
She's 13. I have a number of swimmers at different ages.
No,
she doesn't do max power. She doesn't do
age in which let's call it maturation age. When swimmers, they reach their best performance, they are reaching at maturation age. That's probably 16 and up, right?
Sure. Well, girls are a little earlier, but yeah.
A bit lower or still?
Yeah, probably 16.
So,
yeah.
At this age, 13, I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't really be very concerned about maximum strength.
Right. We don't do max strength. We do max power because we have isokinetics. We can do max power.
Is fine. Yeah, but not okay. Maximum strength 15 and up. Considering the specifics of picking in swimming.
So let's just go 15 and up. Do you expect them to improve? I mean, you're only measuring them every 3 weeks, or you know pretty much every day that they're lifting what they're lifting, right? But you're saying you're cycling it. So you do like 80% and then you go 100% every 3 weeks or something?
Well, you know, I work in cycles, and a cycle, let's say if a cycle is 3 weeks, first step is maybe 80%, second step is maybe 85, 90, third step is 90, 95. Okay, so the load is not the same in every single cycle.
Sure.
It goes up and then down, and because you need also rest and recovery.
So a cycle is
not
3 weeks? A cycle is 3 weeks, right?
3 weeks, yes.
Okay.
Because of 3 steps in increasing the load. So the third step is always the highest, is most challenging, but not the first step. So, you know, if you are, I'm sure that you did quite a bit of reading about periodization. So
sure,
there are examples that of all kinds. So cycle training is very effective because it is forcing you after the third step, which is the highest, the next step is lower. So it gives you time for recovery and regeneration.
So how does this work out? Here's the thing. We're not runners. So we are always in a viscous material with it. The faster we pull, the harder we pull. I think it's they say the resistance cubes as the velocity increases in swimming. So how do you work that out so that you're doing this cyclical maximum strength or power training out of the pool, and then you get in the pool and do you cycle it? Do you try to get coaches to be able to say, okay, on the days or the cycles where we do this, maybe you do go a little bit longer and less less maximum velocity. And on the, I mean, do you work that out as a complete training plan?
Well, the main workout for you is morning, right? Is that morning or afternoon?
For me, it's morning, but I'm just talking about the general coach that's doing double practices and or even single practices. But every day, maybe they're trying to get somebody to go an all-out sprint, and they've got big hands. They're getting a heck of a weight workout, right?
Yes, but then if I were to plan my workout for swimmers, um, the maximum strength will be in the afternoon, and I wouldn't do anything else.
Oh, no swimming at all.
Not at all, because it's contradicting that maximum strength is such a complex kind of work. It's very challenging. And then you are going to do what, swimming after that? It's contradicting.
All over the country. We do it everywhere in the country. Yeah. It's common. So you're saying it's bad. It's something that probably is going to be changed in the future, right?
Well, this is what I would, if I were to, let's say, to have a discussion with swimming coaches, and not just theory, but let's say how are going to do practically. Yeah, you might be surprised what I would suggest.
I'm already surprised at what you just said.
I think it's
No
too much.
afternoon
It's too
practice.
much work. Honestly, you guys are training too much.
Okay.
Sometimes I have these feelings. Sprinters, you know how many times per week they train? Sprinters?
Running?
5, 6, once a day.
Once a day.
Saturday sometimes don't even train. And it's amazing, because at first I was contradicted myself. Said, how is that possible? Because my background was in a sort of mixture of speed and endurance, okay, in rowing. And then when I started to work with Ben Johnson and things like that, then he was strong in general, but then I also reduced the number of workouts. In swimming is 2 workouts per day. In rowing, 2 workouts per day. In sprinting is 1, because it's called nervous system training.
I see.
And nervous system it's a challenge. It's maximally how should I say, the input is maximal. It's a very high challenging type of work. You cannot do it twice a day. Very difficult.
What? Okay, so is this a systemic problem, or this is something I worked with Dr. Rick Sharp when we worked on Cool Coach, my program, and I actually used your periodization in it. You probably remember, because it was a long time ago, but I was using your periodization, and then I was comparing that to what he had worked on, and the work he did was working on stress, and so he would work on systemic stress as well as the individual stress. So he would give, unlike you, he would give a stress level that he thought was essential to oxidative work. Then he would give us, it was much lower, in terms of stress, in terms of the body's, the impact on the body and the impact on recovery. And then he would give a different stress level for, but he had 5 different levels. And at maximum velocity, he would give it a pretty high level. I forgot the numbers right now, but it was something like call it a 6. So we wrote the software, and it was based in Excel. But I'm actually physically coaching during this time. So I gave my swimmers, I wrote a set of 10 25s. This is 1 lap of the pool, all out breaststroke. And I wrote a set of 10 100s breaststroke on 130. And of course, what had to be considered is how fast is the swimmer? Because if a swimmer is their best time is 125, 10 100s on 130 is really stressful. And it's really hard. I mean, if they do it, it's incredible, But if they go 55 in the 100 breaststroke, 130 is a pretty easy interval. But what we figured out was that if we tried to go lactic, but barely, and the 10 100s, 1,000 yards, the 10 25s, to your point, was more stressful. And I actually called him in Colorado Springs, and I said, Rick, this can't be right. It can't be right, because what we were doing is we were limiting ourselves to how much stress we would do each day so that we still had all the days. He had made the statement that most coaches kill their swimmers by Wednesday and then just drag them through the rest of the week. You probably agree with that. So I was trying to fix that, and he said, You're absolutely right. those 1025s, if they're all out, now that's the big if, right? Are those swimmers really giving us 100%? So we measured it. We're like, okay, we know what your best 25 is. And I was shocked. And so maybe you're right, Tudor, and maybe
10
maybe
times
the future of
100,
swimming,
that's far too much. 10 times. No
10
way.
100s is far too much, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but not
That's all
only
a
that,
warm-up.
but yeah. Oh, for God's sake.
It
You're
is.
trained too much. You're trained too much.
You could probably say that to every
All
coach.
right. So how about concluding our discussion?
Sure. You have anything else to say to conclude it? And obviously we want everybody to read your book, Periodization of Training, right?
Strength training for sports.
Strength training.
Strength training for sports. That's really for suggesting that is because strength training is so poorly understood. It's so many things to so many people. From bodybuilding to who knows what, people they say this is strength training. Well, it's not. Strength training, depending what you want. Maximum strength is heavy loads. Power is quickness. So qualify it. What kind of strength training you do? Okay. So therefore, in swimming, it will be related to the duration of the event. Long distance, I use strength training, but something which I call muscle endurance, which means medium type of load, but have many repetitions. So that matches the physiological profile of the event. So it has to be matched. You started very well the whole discussion. Specific, make it specific physiologically from every single point of view.
Okay. Do you measure?
And the future, to me, the future is, as I mentioned also in the article I wrote for you, is proportion. Proportion is the key to power because you apply force to overcome drag. Okay, you're the enemy. In your handout, you see what I said. Drag is your enemy. Overcome it. How? Max heavy loads or strength training. But qualified according to the event.
I'm left with you only gave us one real for sure exercise, the straight arm pull down. We've got to read your book. We've got to figure out all the other things. But you said be careful because we could end up doing too many. We could look at all the exercises you're going to have in your book, and we're doing too many.
No.
So we got to figure out
how many. You know how many exercises I did with Ben Johnson? 3.
3.
3 exercises, no more. Okay, and not too many sets because you cannot take it too much. You can push, but one day, sometimes along the line, you are going to pay the price. So very careful about what you plan, what you do, and how much. And remember that stress is the enemy of the athletes. Social, psychological, everything else, physiological.
They have to have time to recover. Yeah. Wow. I don't know. I'm looking at the present doesn't mean we're right. I think that's the bottom line. The present, because you're not just talking about one guy that goes endurance training, but you're talking about everybody, almost everybody who's successful on a long-term basis does a lot more work than you say they should be doing. Yep.
Well, in the past, I used to go to, I think I was twice at Colorado Springs invited by the Swimming Federation. And there were some people, they were looking at me, I said, this guy is crazy. It's nuts.
This is a good segue to my interview.
You know what is nice sometimes? You know what I used to do when I was coaching? I look at every sport I put to see what they do. And I said, what is that? Can I get anything from this? What is applicable to me? So sometimes stick your nose into somebody else's business and see what they do and why. Why?
That's exactly my point. Yep. That's my job. You're talking about my job as a publisher of a magazine. It's an awesome job. And I really enjoyed our interview. I think it's funny because in a sense we're not arguing, but we're scientists. So we're looking at it from
we complement each other. We complement each other.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
You know, on face-to-face kind of discussion, it will be something very interesting and practical and theory and stuff like that, because then we can work or discuss more often and more important application. How to apply this, how to apply that. Well, Steve, thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you, sir.
You're wonderful. I also enjoy many of your comments. It was just very good, and you know what you're talking about, definitely.
Well, you certainly do. And thank you, Dr. Bompa. I hope everybody sees this and realizes that you're a great resource for our sport as well as track and all the other sports that you're into. I appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you very much, and all the best to you.
Thank you. God bless.
Yeah.